Well, it's great to have you here.
Okay.
Oh, KD. Hey.
Thank you
KD,
for
the
uplifting my
OG.
thing. Yeah.
How many people did you get to answer your poll, Kim?
Over 50 now. All right.
Fantastic.
So thank y'all.
Absolutely. Kim was working on an article that had as a component of the research a poll, a public-facing anonymous poll that took about 11 seconds, but you know how hard it is to get people to do anything. So there were a couple of us
Oh,
uh, singing about it on various and sundry platforms. I'm glad that you got
okay.
50 responses.
I
That's
like that.
pretty good.
I have to check it out.
Okay, now I am going to really be quiet.
Okay. All right, let's get
Joyce, do you
started.
want me to share the land acknowledgement? You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Great. All right.
In case people want to read along, that'll be fine.
Give me a minute.
Okie dokie, because I have it also. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Continuing Conversations. Our discussion tonight will be about the water stealing. Oh, sorry. But before we begin, let me ground myself in thinking about the land on which we are living. The land on which we are living is part of the ancient homeland and traditional territory of the Lenni Lenape people. We pay respect to the Lenni Lenape people, past, present, and future, and their continuing presence in their homeland and in the diaspora. We also acknowledge the millions of enslaved Africans and their descendants on whose backs the wealth of this nation was created. Not in our town mission statement. Not in our town, Princeton is a multiracial, multi-faith group of individuals who stand together for racial justice and inclusive communities. Our focus is to promote the equitable treatment of all and to uncover and confront white supremacy, the systems that facilitate the preference, privilege, and power of white people at the expense of non-white people and pits racial and ethnic groups against each other by upholding hierarchies based on proximity to whiteness. Our goal is to identify and expose the political, economical, and cultural systems which have enabled white supremacy to flourish and to create new structures and policies which will ensure equity and inclusion for all. In our commitment to uncovering the blight of white supremacy on our humanity, we take responsibility by addressing it and eliminating it in all its forms through intentional actions, starting with ourselves and our communities. I am ecstatic, beyond honored to introduce our very own Caroline Clarke. I hope you guys had an opportunity to read her bio, but this is going to be on a personal level. Our Carolyn has always been the voice for the voiceless. She has always spoken up for the masses, and I cannot begin to tell you how much I admire and respect her for that. Many people don't understand the plight of the masses, and I do not like the word of underclass, but many people still don't understand the plight of everyday community folks, but Carolyn does. And tonight we're going to talk about that, and I hope you have your good listening ears on. Carolyn, thank you so much. And the rest of myself and the board, we appreciate your presence here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. You're about to make me cry.
Okay, no tears.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Um, Tonight I want to talk about Trenton Waterworks. Trenton, two things before I get started. The first is Trenton Waterworks needs change. It has management issues. It has transparency issues. It has communication issues. And it has infrastructure issues. But Trenton Waterworks is not unique. It is like most water utilities in the nation. The American Society of Civil Engineers, and slide 2, Linda, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's water infrastructure a national grade of C- and said the nation's water infrastructure is aging and underfunded. It states that more than 9 million existing lead lines pose health concerns, and in 2023, the EPA determined that the water infrastructure needs stand at 625 billion, that's billion with a B dollars, over the next 20 years. So yes, we have some of those problems at Trenton Waterworks. But nothing about any of those problems justifies selling Trenton Waterworks. So the second thing I want to say is, throughout this discussion, I will use the words regionalization and sale interchangeably. And that's because what's happening here is not regionalization in the true sense of the word. It's not regionalization as the term has been used in government spaces. In government spaces, typically, regionalization refers to the consolidation of services, like school districts, police departments, right? Each entity has their own school or police department, and they consolidate them with other municipalities, typically to save taxpayers money. But in the Trenton Waterworks context, the other townships have no utility to bring to the table. They're purportedly bringing their checkbooks. Well, if you're bringing money to the table, you're buying. So that's not regionalization. It's a sale. Just because the buyers are from the region doesn't make it regionalization. So irrespective of whether it's another township or a private water company, someone is paying money in exchange for ownership of Trenton Waterworks. The state continues to call it regionalization. I would just like to start out by saying that is a misnomer. So I want to say that everything I say here tonight is based on my own research. I am not speaking as the chair of Not in Our Town. I am speaking as a resident taxpayer and owner of Trenton Waterworks. Trenton Waterworks belongs to the residents and taxpayers of the city of Trenton. Based on my own research, the state is pushing a narrative that Trenton's water is unsafe and that this sale is necessary because of that. The real objective here, though, in my opinion, is privatization. Safety is a scare tactic intended to facilitate the privatization of the utility. It would not be the first time that an executive used a scare tactic and rhetoric to justify governmental intrusion into the affairs of an inner city. So the unfair water narrative has been pushed by the state through DEP. The fact is, Trenton's water meets the federal EPA standards for safe drinking water. I attended a forum in May of 2025 at one of the Trenton schools, and DEP staff was in attendance. And there they admitted that Trenton's water is safe and said they drink it every day. Ewing's own mayor said it hasn't killed a plant. And Trenton recently sent out a water quality report, which DEP has not challenged any of the findings in that report. If they knew the report to be false, they would certainly have capitalized on it. During our meeting, with the DEP commissioner and our city council, City Council President Yasminelli asked Commissioner LaTourette several times, is the water safe? At first, he refused to answer, and then he relented and he said, yes, for now. So this does not mean that we don't have problems, like I started out saying, but it does mean that as far as the DEP is concerned, their regulatory authority, it's about providing safe drinking water, and Trenton does provide safe drinking water. During an interview, as well as when Commissioner LaTourette showed up at City Council, he pushed back on anti-regionalization initiatives, and he indicated that people died from Legionnaires because of Trenton's bad water. That is disingenuous and dangerous. Yes, there was a Legionella breakout in Hamilton. However, Legionella breakout in New Jersey is not limited to areas served by Trenton Waterworks. I checked the New Jersey Department of Health's website and I found a map illustrating Legionella. Would you show that slide, please, Linda? That would be slide 3. It's illustrating Legionella breakouts in New Jersey. I think this is up till 2023. The 5 most severe instances of Legionella happened in Mercer, Essex, Warren, Hunterdon, and Union. Mercer is Trenton Waterworks, check. But Essex, Warren, Hunterdon, and Union counties, they are either fully or partially serviced by American Water or Aqua Water. Therefore, Legionella also happens when the utility is privately owned. At no time did DEP's commissioner call out those private utilities or called for the sale of those privately held companies. To use the event of Legionellas as a reason to sell Trenton Waterworks is to tie the unfortunate incident to the type of ownership of the water, and that's cheap. And it's a weak scare tactic. Legionella is a common problem that occurs in water systems throughout the world, irrespective of whether it's private or publicly owned. It's exploitive and it's desperate to use that as a reason to justify the sale. The commissioner also brought up Flint, Michigan, when he visited our council. So since he opened the door, I'm going to walk through it. He issued a dire warning that Trenton may become the next Flint. And he is correct, but not for the reason he's saying. What happened in Flint is that the state government switched its water supply from the Detroit water facility and started taking water from the Flint River. This is important because of its similarity to what's going on in Trenton. The person who made that decision was not the elected city council in Flint. It was a state-appointed, unelected emergency manager for the city of Flint who made the decision. The Michigan Civil Rights Commission did an investigative report, and along with other analyses, identified several reasons for what happened in Flint. One of the reasons was systemic racism and institutional failures. Chief amongst them was the devaluation of the majority Black city following deindustrialization and white flight from Flint, state government policies that treated the city and its predominantly Black population as less important. And this neglect included cuts in state revenue sharing, which hurt Flint's finances and infrastructure, similar to what has happened and is happening in Trenton. Our funding has been cut, and it has been tied to our submission to the state and the fact that we don't get our payment in lieu of taxes. Another finding was that the undemocratic and racially disparate governance, the state's appointment of unelected emergency managers to the financially distressed majority Black cities like Flint, led to an erosion of local democracy. In the same way that the DEP is attempting to substitute its decisions for our council's decisions. In Flint, about 43% of the population lived in poverty. In Trenton, it's about 30. In Flint, 45% of homes were renter occupied. In Trenton, 64% of the homes are renter occupied. In addition, just as in many low-income and minority urban centers, children in Flint were already at increased risk for lead exposure because of older and deteriorated housing stock and poor nutrition, just like they are in Trenton. In Flint, the lead infection rate was about 5%. In Trenton, we have a 6% infection rate. So Commissioner LaTourette is correct. There are scary similarities of what happened in Flint and what is happening in Trenton in real time. If the state takes our water, we will most definitely end up like Flint. But not because we refuse to sell the water, but because of what the state government has historically done and is doing. By pressuring our elected officials to disregard the voices of those who elected them and instead do what the state tells them to do, that is an erosion of democracy. That is voter disenfranchisement. And that is how Trenton will end up like Flint. So I want to move on to the timing of things. So I asked the question, why is the current administration so interested in safety only at the end of its tenure? Why are they only interested regarding safety when it involves our revenue producing asset, and only when it involves richer and wider towns? They certainly were not interested in safety when the United States Department of Justice issued a scathing report on the Trenton Police Department, the law and safety arm of our government. The administration wasn't interested in the lack of safety there. They didn't even bother to suggest regionalization. So, is this progressive administration saying that they're interested in water safety, but not public safety? Are they saying they're interested in safety in wider and richer towns, but not in predominantly Black towns like Trenton? I'm just asking a question. I want to move on to privatization. So I don't believe DEP's narrative that the push for sale is about safety. I believe it's about privatization. It's about revenues. Trenton Waterworks generates over $60 million annually. It's an asset. You don't have to be a Wall Street guru to know that. But in 2009, the state tried to privatize Trenton Waterworks. That was the first big push for privatization. The BPU argued that the state of New Jersey, and that's slide number 5, Linda, that the state of New Jersey would receive additional gross receipts and franchise taxes from New Jersey American Water that it would not otherwise receive if the acquisition were not to be completed. So the state has a financial stake in the sale of Trenton Waterworks. So they're pushing regionalization because they know that the county and the municipalities would be willing to sell the waterworks to a private entity. In fact, one of the reliefs that the municipalities asked for when they joined DEP's effort to sue Trenton Waterworks, one of the reliefs they asked for was the forced sale to a private utility. So this is not my speculation. This is established. So let's go back to 2009 a little bit. In that attempt, the state straight up tried to privatize Trenton Waterworks. They tried to privatize Trenton Waterworks at the end of Corzine's gubernatorial term. That was just a straight money grab. There was no scare tactics. It's just, we're selling. So the citizens objected. They said, too bad, we're selling. The citizens took them to court. Every single court ruled against the citizens and said they were allowed to sell until we went to the Supreme Court, which finally said you cannot disenfranchise the voters. They have a constitutional right to vote on the disposition of the asset. The referendum went through. Trenton, the no sale initiative, won 79-21. Trentonians did not want to sell their water utility in 2009. And I believe that is still the same in 2025. I want us to understand that in 2009, our governor was Corzine. He was a Wall Streeter. In 2025, our governor is Murphy. He's a Wall Streeter. He's also trying to sell the water at the end of his term. The reason they do this is because they want to avoid political fallout. So they do it at the end of their terms. So here is our Wall Street governor pushing hard at the end of his tenure for the sale. This time, the sale is couched in safety concerns. And DEP and DCA are the agencies he's using to effectuate the sale. Having had the benefit and having learned the lessons from Corzine's attempt, he's doing it in a way that could bypass a referendum. But to be clear, this is not the administration's first attempt to transfer ownership of Trenton Waterworks. This administration's first attempt happened in 2018, 6 months after Trenton Waterworks was placed under consent order under the state. The legislature put up a bill to transfer ownership from Trenton to Mercer County. Those bills died. They put it up in 2018, 2020, and 2022. That's slide number 6, Linda. That's the bill. So their first quote unquote regionalization attempt died. So now the last attempt is selling to the municipalities. What's important to remember about the 3 bills, though, is that when these bills came up to transfer ownership of Trenton Waterworks, at that point in time, Commissioner LaTourette had no pictures about decaying infrastructure. They had no state paid for independent reports about catastrophic conditions at Trenton Waterworks. We didn't have an employee who had yet not taken samples at Trenton Waterworks, who failed to do his job. None of that was in play. It was a straight up, we want to move it because we've had problems with Trenton and water safety. No evidence. This is just the given reason about why. Now, I am not a water expert by any stretch of the imagination. I am simply interested in asking questions that I think will at least force folks to answer in a way, and then we can make decisions for ourselves about why these things are happening and the way that they're happening. So we're at the regionalization with the municipalities. So the latest push, of course, is for the municipalities to come to the table and buy Trenton Waterworks. So why are we not calling this a sale? Why does DEP insist on calling it regionalization? Because we have a 2010 referendum that says we're not interested in selling. So now we're using euphemisms and calling it regionalization. So in my opinion, because these justifications did not exist at the time that the three bills were put up, it's reasonable to conclude that the state had a predetermined outcome since 2018, and that it's used its time while we were under the state's consent order to gather evidence to justify the forced sale or transfer to a public entity, a necessary step in the privatization process. You see, if the utility is sold to a private company like American Water, it requires a referendum. If it is sold to another public entity, it is not a mandatory referendum. If the voters in Trenton decide that they are going to contest the sale, we are required to get 15% of the signatures from the voters in the most recent election cycle, and we have 20 days in which to do it. So if we are unsuccessful in gathering those signatures, the sale goes through. No referendum needed. So the sale to the municipality is really a circuitous way to get to the sale to the private entities. Again, since the municipalities have already indicated they are willing to sell to the private entities. So the takeaway is that the first attempt to transfer happened at the beginning of the administration through the legislature, and the final attempt is happening at the end of the administration through sale to the municipalities. This is not about safety. It is a circuitous route to privatization. If it was about safety, they would have forced a fix 8 years ago with the same vigor that they are now using to force a sale. The proposed solution, the only solution that the state has for us, is a sale. Well, a sale doesn't fix the problems. It doesn't fix systemic failures. It doesn't fix infrastructure decay. It doesn't fix financial issues or data fraud. It privatizes those things. And what that means is it moves the problems from the public sphere where transparency is demanded and moves it to a space where there is no transparency and no accountability to private corporations. So the state's position is full of contradictions. According to Commissioner LaTourette, Trenton Waterworks needs to be untied from Trenton's government. Why? Because no one wants to work with Trenton. But every month, Trenton gives out hundreds of contracts, and they're always bidders. So somebody wants to work with Trenton. The problem is not that no one wants to work with Trenton. The problem is that Trenton will not submit to the state. We will not be bullied into selling our utility, and we will not be tricked into selling our water utility. So Commissioner LaTourette also says that if the utilities moved under the 5 municipalities rather than just Trenton, that he would be able to bring in the expertise to fix the problems at Trenton Waterworks. Well, if you can bring in the expertise under 5 governments, you surely can bring it in under 1 government. Why aren't we doing that? We're not doing that because the objective is not to fix, the objective is to sell. So, and for the record, if Trenton Waterworks' water is unsafe, so too is American Water and Aqua Water, since they both rent pipes from Trenton Waterworks. I didn't even know that. It was Commissioner LaTourette's RFP that told us about that. So I want to move on a little to the economic impact. The economic impact of losing Trenton Waterworks will be devastating to Trenton. It will result in a loss of jobs and revenues, some of which offsets our budget. The state doesn't pay taxes, and if they did, it would be to the tune of $69 million annually. We don't get that. One of the townships, which has been quite vocal regarding pushing for the sale, they owe Trenton Waterworks $1.7 million in water bills. No one knows how much the state owes, but I do know that they too owe Trenton Waterworks. So Trenton will lose jobs and revenues while the municipalities and the state will gain our jobs and gain our revenues and essentially be rewarded for not paying their water bill. Look at the average median income in the respective municipalities. Trenton's median income is $47,000 a year. Ewing, twice that, 87. Hamilton, 97. Lawrence, 122,000. Hopewell, $177,000 a year. And our progressive governor wants to transfer our revenue to these townships that are far richer than us. What will happen to Trenton? We will look like Flint. No one has bothered to do an impact analysis on how this will affect an economic analysis on how this will impact Trenton. Trenton does use some of the money from Trenton Waterworks to fund our budget. And some of our customers expressed that they are upset about this. But this is industry practice and it's legal. But I wish the townships would also be upset about the fact that they and every other town in New Jersey is subsidized by Trentonians every day. Every day we have the burden of housing these state buildings, foregoing $69 million in tax revenues. Our roads withstand the state workers' traffic every day. Our garbage collectors, our water and sewer utility, our fire department. It's interesting to me that towns complain that we use money from the utility to supplement our budget, but they're quiet regarding the costs of being the capital city, quiet that we don't get our pilot, quiet when the state is forcing Trenton to hire its political cronies, some of them from their townships. And I don't want to hear that Trenton gets municipal aid. Other towns get municipal aid too. and they don't have to house state buildings. That is a different issue than payment in lieu of taxes. It's a different pot of money. New Jersey has one of the worst wealth gap in the nation. Privatization will widen that gap, as this transfer of wealth will have long-term and crippling effect on Trenton. We will still be subsidizing the state despite the fact that the state has forcibly taken our revenues. This is a transfer of wealth in real time. This is how you create Flints. You take the jobs, you take the hospitals, you take the libraries, and you take the revenue producing assets and you transfer them to richer and wider towns. But you make sure you keep the bad policing. This is a recipe for disaster. This is how government creates ghettos and then blame the people stuck in those conditions for the conditions they created. So I'm going to come up out of the weeds a little bit. I just want to talk about water privatization in general, and then I'm going to run the video. I hope I'm running a little over time. So privatization is a terrible way to address infrastructure and financial challenges. Water privatization is expensive. Water companies are allowed to pass the cost right on to customers through higher bills. They charge 59% more than public systems. And it's expensive primarily because of the 10% profit that corporations earn on their investments. They're also allowed to be bad actors, and no one stops them from engaging in the business. Manalapan's request for proposal resulted in only one bidder, and that was Viola, the same company implicated in the lead in water crisis in Flint. They pledged to freeze water rates. They never keep that promise. Privatization typically reduces jobs by about 1/3, with fewer employees to respond to customers. Private companies also cherry pick which areas they provide service in or where they invest in projects to avoid serving low-income communities because they won't make much money there. So when profit is the priority, low-income residents are adversely impacted as they are likely to struggle to pay. Water affordability is a racial justice issue, and it is an equity issue. This administration cannot say that they support underserved communities while trying to dispossess an underserved community of its biggest revenue producing asset, our water. Yes, Trenton makes and the state takes. I just want you to listen for a quick minute to a video that is played, and just bear with me. Please don't take everything that's said in there. I just need you to listen carefully to how the mayor of Hamilton, who owes the $1.7 million, how he's so vociferous about the sale, and his admission at the very end where he says he wants to own shares. Well, nobody owns shares in a public utility. You only own shares in a private one. So Linda, would you play the video for me? I think there's a little star over to the side. If you hit that, the video will play. Do you see it? Yeah, that one. If you look right under the 8, you'll see that little star. If you hit the star. Oh, now go back up. Yeah, that one. It didn't play. Hit the star underneath the, look at the number 8 on the slide. Over, yeah, hit that. It still didn't play. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay because we're short on time anyway. But if anyone is interested, I'll be happy to send out the video afterwards. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you have any questions, we'll talk about them in our breakout rooms, and we could meet back and talk if we need to. But at the end of the day, Trentonians oppose selling our water to anyone, public or private. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Before we go into the breakout rooms, I do have a question.
Yes.
Will this issue die at the end of Murphy's administration, or is it going to continue in, and what do the have the two gubernatorial candidates said anything about the issue?
No, neither has said anything about the issue. Again, this is part of the neglect that we talk about when we talk about um, the governance. Um, my suspicion is that this will not go away. It will come up again and again until they think they have worn Trentonians out. The reason they do this at the end of administration is because they don't want to adversely impact the incoming administration, right? So Murphy doesn't want to adversely impact Sherrill. To be honest, I haven't heard anything from Chitterelli regarding this at all. And in fact, she hasn't said anything either. But we do know that Commissioner Latourette was out and about campaigning for uh, gubernatorial candidate Mickey Sherrill.
Hi, Caroline. I actually also have a question. I don't know
Yes,
if you're able to hear me.
I can.
Okay, excuse any background noise because I am on transit right now, our lovely transit systems. But first and foremost, I just want to say I want to first and foremost express my heartfelt thanks for this informative presentation. And I'm truly sorry for the challenges you and your community are facing under Democratic leadership. I, d- I deeply appreciate that individuals like you take time away from your families to raise awareness and fight for what's right, which is exactly what you are doing. The research time and effort you put into this project and the fight is truly remarkable. And I want you to know that we're listening and fully support you in this fight to protect underserved communities. Also, I just wanted to reiterate and clarify the mayor is Democrat as well as our governor. And you had also mentioned political fallout. While I understand what you meant by that, I also believe there are clearly, like you stated, there are profits to be made. And this is exactly the angle that they want to go. Excuse me. This is exactly the direction that they want to go in. Um,
Great.
and I must ask, why is the state regionalizing instead of just straight privatizing like Corzine did?
So the state is privatizing like Corzine did. They're just using the word regionalization. They're using the word regionalization because if you say the word sale, Trentonians are up in arms, right? So we're using euphemisms. That's number one. Number two, again, this is just a circuitous way to get to privatization. If you sell directly to a private entity, you have to have a referendum. If you sell to another public entity, you may or may not have a referendum. You will only have a referendum if the residents secure 15% of the electorate in the last election, and they have 20 days in which to do it, to challenge the sale, to make it a referendum, right? So there is a pretty big burden on the city to meet the 20-day deadline and get the 15% of the electorate to sign the petition to raise the referendum. So they're hoping that we're not able to organize, that we're not able to secure the number of signatures needed within the time that's needed. So it's really it's really just a workaround to sale. Well, it's 20 days, it's 15%, and it starts after the ordinance is raised to sell the water. I'm sorry, after the ordinance is approved. Yes, we will tap our
Thank
we'll tap
you.
our allies to help us to secure the signatures.
Jim has a question.
Okay.
James, can you?
Yeah, but very thorough presentation, Caroline. Thank you. The question I had is, I did a little bit of research online about this, and it seemed to me you kept talking about it, I understand, as a sale, but it's a from what they're presenting, they say that um, there'll be a regional public utility authority in which both all the four townships plus Trenton will all be represented. And so that doesn't sound like a sale to a, it's not a sale to New Jersey American or something. So help me understand um, what's going on here.
Okay, so a sale to American Water is a sale to a private utility. A sale to the townships is a sale to a public utility. It is still a sale, irrespective of who is the buyer.
Yeah, but it's
Clintonians,
not a sale to them. It's a partnership. Trenton will still, in fact, be the majority owner, so to speak. It- the townships have to pay for part of the assets, but you have more people in Trenton using the water than in the townships. So it seems like you are the majority owner in that. So I'm confused.
okay, so let's come up a little bit from Trenton Waterworks. Is there any corporation that you know in which there are more owners or their owners are proportionate to the users? Okay. Does Tesla care how many customers it has? Right? The board makes its decisions in the best interest of Tesla. Trenton Waterworks makes its decisions in the best interest of Trenton and its customers. But customers pay for the water and we provide the water. After that, the customers don't really have a say about what we do. We have an obligation to provide safe drinking water, and we should. But the fact that there are more customers outside of Trenton than in Trenton is not a reason to make them owners. We provide a service, water. In fact, we were about to get more. I think Bordentown was thinking at some point of joining. So just because we get more customers doesn't mean that we don't deserve to own our water. Why would we own a utility, a $60 million utility, and then give richer townships partial ownership? You guys have a lot going on in your communities. You have a lot of money, a lot of assets. No one ever would think about coming into your community and compelling your council to sell your assets to Trenton.
This sounds like just the way that I was reading, that there would be two benefits to Trenton from partial ownership by the townships. One was there would be an initial influx of money, and then second, there would be a annual flow of money from the townships as part of the operation. I can send you the information that I discovered so that maybe that would be helpful.
Well, so let me say this. Whether Trenton keeps or sells its asset is a decision for Trentonians.
They're not that's the point that I read, which was they aren't really selling it. They're just selling part of it. So they still
Right.
maintain control.
Right. So selling part
that,
of it is selling it because when we sell part of it, we're giving up the revenues to that part of it. We have no desire to do that. It
okay.
is our water. It is our utility. It is our revenues. We are an underserved community. We cannot afford to give up our one asset, our revenue producing asset. If you guys do want to share services with us, though, I think it would be good for some of the townships to recommend perhaps regionalizing the police department.
Yeah, well, I don't live in any of those townships.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
outside the area. So,
Okay. Yeah. So I think it would be good if we want to talk about partnerships and, sharing uh, problems as well as solutions. Let's start with our police department and maybe our school districts, and
yeah.
then
Mhm.
maybe then we can talk about regionalizing those things. And then if that works out really well, then maybe the trust will be there where we would be okay with uh, sharing our revenue producing assets.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Mickey?
Yeah, I'm ready. First of all, thank you, Caroline, for just such a wonderful presentation. It's such an informative presentation. In a few minutes, we'll be moving into breakout rooms. Um, and I just want to go over a few community agreements. Let me open them up so I can see them. The first thing is listen to each other respectfully so that each person has an opportunity to be heard. Take space, make space. People are encouraged to overcome their reluctance to talk. Take care not to dominate the conversation. Allow everyone to have equal airtime. Be careful not to interrupt when someone else is speaking. Please agree to respect one another's privacy by keeping this discussion and people's names and identities confidential. We ask that you embrace the concept, whatever is said or shared room stays in this room. Please speak from your own personal experience to avoid making generalizations. White people may feel uncomfortable when a person of color shares a hard truth. They should also understand that sharing these truths can be painful or even traumatic for the person of color. And finally, while we commit to centering these conversations through the lens of race, participants may experience these conversations through a variety of lenses. We acknowledge intersectionality, the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender, regarded as creating overlapping interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. We make space for the breadth of human experience and all are welcome. Okay, and we're going to share the questions for everyone to take a look at. So I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to take a look at the questions. Okay, so now we're going to move into breakout rooms. And I just want to say that if, once the rooms are open, if people have left and they're not, we may move people around. So don't be concerned if you get moved. And once again, thank you so much to Caroline. And after this, we'll reconvene.
Why?
Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Um, so Caroline is not in this room. Is that
Okay.
right? Her name is here. Is that correct?
Yes, her name's here, and we were just going to start ourselves by asking the first question
Well,
and
that's
answering
fine.
it.
Do you have the questions available?
I took a picture of it on my
Oh,
phone.
excellent. Sharon, why
So,
don't you go ahead?
and repeat the question, or
You can
do
you can start wherever you'd like, or if someone in the group here, if one of the questions appealed to you in particular.
I mean, that one appealed to me, and it is the first question, and I would
Okay,
keep
please.
my guess. Just it seems like assets of low-income municipalities are taken advantage of, you know, in general, in recent history. I mean, Flint was mentioned. There are Detroit was, where the government, the state government, if it's Republican, often they have declared emergency management and appointed people. That's what happened in Flint. That I do believe that happened in Detroit some decades ago. And so, yeah, I do think that the waterworks, if we had owned it in Princeton, where I live, or a wealthier community, they
People
would
would be up in
not, no
arms.
assets would be taken. So that it's Trenton, where they can, I think, take advantage of people. The more burdened a majority low income place is, municipality is, the more burdened the residents are just to meet their basic needs. And therefore, it's hard for them to fight. And having advocates like Caroline and organizations like Not in Our Town help with the analysis and the pushback. And I am super impressed with how deeply Caroline went into the research and came to the conclusion that regionalization is a euphemism. It's a like bait and switch to get us to be thinking differently about it, not as a sale. And I think
I
re-educating the population and the voters in Trenton is urgent.
I agree with you, Sharon. I attended a public hearing at the Hamilton Library about a month ago, and residents were up in arms. They were totally convinced that the water was poisonous. It was killing their pets. They went on and on and on. And what's your plan to replace all the infrastructure? They were so tough on the waterwork personnel who were there. One of whom was like a microbiologist, and really she had this cred, and she was explaining that the testing that goes on today, I drink the water. I'm not afraid of the water. But listening to Caroline, I never realized how much Trenton relied financially on the Trenton Waterworks. And I even didn't, excuse me for being stupid, I had no idea that the state of New Jersey doesn't even payments in lieu of taxes to the city of Trenton, with tens of thousands of state workers come in every single day, right? And the garbage and all of the other public services that Trenton provides. I think it's my whole mindset has been completely flipped on 180 degrees because of what I just heard. And I would no longer would advocate regionalization.
Has everyone else heard about the issue before tonight? And yeah,
I hadn't.
okay.
Yeah, there's a perception that the water is undrinkable. It's really, really strong. I don't know how you counter that. And I feel sorry for Trenton. They lost a hospital recently. They lost a newspaper. they lost, they even lost the baseball team, you know, and I just I think we need to cut them some slack here because it's not like they're poisoning us. We'd all be dead if the water was poisonous, right?
Well, it's interesting how you're phrasing it too, because it's a real them and us kind of issue that it ends
Mm-hmm.
up being framed as. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Caroline is a Trenton resident. Joyce Trotton Jordan is a Trenton resident. So there are a lot of people who live there and these issues are pertinent to them as well. I mean, they want to have clean water, of
Of
course.
course.
So it's that people in a different town would see it as those people doing
Mm-hmm.
something to us
Mm-hmm.
because of how politicians, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
frame the issue.
Yeah.
And Sharon, I really appreciated that you looked back, and I try to read a lot of history, particularly African American history, because it was something that I never learned in school, and as an adult, I've just been really immersing myself in it, and you begin to see the patterns of what has happened over time. It's not exactly the same thing, but there are so often when there were accusations in post-Civil War against a Black man, there would be a lynching, and then the whole Black community of a town would essentially be chased out of the town and create
Mm-hmm.
what they would call sundown towns,
Mm-hmm.
where a person who of color might be able to work there, but they could not reside there and they could
Mm-hmm.
not show their faces after the sun went down. And among the people who would be forced out would be business people, property owners who, if they could sell their property, did it at fire sale
Mm-hmm.
prices. So there's this, again, an image of, well, Black people don't really try. They don't really work hard, when indeed they have forever. And so often what they have earned has been taken from them. So when Caroline began, I've heard her speak about this before. When she first brought up the issue, it kind of, for me, it kind of echoed that we have an asset. There's something we own that's being taken away from us, even though it's being used, as you said, with the euphemism as regionalization, something that sounds really sensible
Mm-hmm.
approach to it.
Well, there is a lawsuit, the townships, including my township and my mayor. I really wanted to see that video. They
I
were
put it
trying
in the
to.
chat, and I'll do it again when we go
Oh,
back
good.
into
Thank
the
you.
main room.
Yeah,
Do we have a chat here? I can try to do that for you right now. Oh, Robin, do you live in Hamilton?
I do. Yep. Yeah, there's a
Oh,
chat function.
okay, hold on a second. Give me a second here. Anybody else want to speak to this or any of the other questions?
Well, just about that lawsuit. It was put on hold for a little while because the Trenton's Town Council, even though the mayor was sort of pro-regionalization, the council was not. So it
Oh,
didn't happen. And so now the lawsuit is going to be resurrected according to Mayor Martin to try to force Trenton's hand. And what can we as white allies do to help? What can we do? I mean, I could see myself knocking on doors to get a petition signed, but um, I mean, I could put something on Facebook about it, but I'm not nearly as articulate and informed about this as Caroline is.
I think
is
it's
there
important.
somewhere that you could bring her to speak?
I'd have to think about it.
Mm.
How about to
I
a
was going to
council
say, what
meeting? Yeah.
What we could do is our votes matter, right? So if our politicians hear our voices by going to local council meetings, town hall meetings, or vice versa, I think that's the most important and effective way to show that like this issue, we're aware of this issue and it's concerning, and we want answers, and essentially we want what's right to be done.
Right.
I think if when we go back to the main room, I think that's a question to ask as well.
Yeah. Like, how can we help? What can we do?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mayor Martin's a Democrat. There's no way I'm voting for a Republican.
Yeah.
I'd rather just try to convince him, to
Yes.
listen to her presentation. I mean, it looks like it's going to be repeated ad nauseum
Mhm.
based on the schedule I saw.
Mhm.
So there's no reason that he shouldn't listen.
Yeah. Berta, did you
Can
want to-
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm having to do this on my phone and I'm having some problems with it. But I just wanted to say that this was totally new to me. I had no idea. I was very familiar with Flint and that situation. My daughter lives about 40 minutes from Flint, Michigan, but I had no idea this was going on in Trenton. And so I want to thank Not In Our Town for making this available to those of us who need to know about it, but didn't.
Mhm.
So
So
thank
glad you
you.
came tonight. Mhm.
I am too. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm in West Windsor, so I'm not one of those
One of the towns, nor is
that,
Princeton for that
yeah,
matter. Yeah.
we have New Jersey American Water.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to
Please,
thank
Maggie.
thank everyone. And this is but particularly Carolyn. It was great to learn about this. And I live in Bordentown, so I just happen I don't go enough to our council meetings and stuff, but I know there's an issue with the water here that is not lead that I know of, but we need another source because our infrastructure needs attention.
Mhm.
But so I'm gonna bring this up to our local, our city government. And it's, just the fact that water is going to be is already just so an asset that everybody's going to need more of,
Mhm.
and there is going to just become another thing that we go to war over in one way or another.
Mm.
So it's very concerning, and I would love to help make this issue just be, to educate people about the politics involved is exhausting, but we need to understand it and understand what's happening with corporate interests
Mhm.
over public
Sure.
interest.
From the other questions, we have about 5 more minutes before we go back to the main room. The second question says, what is the usefulness of doing a racial impact analysis prior to any discussion or decision regarding the sale of a revenue-producing asset in an economically challenged inner city? Is everyone familiar with what a racial impact analysis is? We had brought
Not
it up.
really.
We had brought it to the Princeton Council when we'd heard about a racial equity impact statement, and it's essentially a series of questions which each location or entity that wants to do this develops for themselves because of people who are white don't necessarily think about what the racial impact is going to be of these developing programs or policies or laws or and so forth. And it's a way of just taking a moment. I mean, when something is developed before it's passed in a political assembly, somebody has had to do some kind of a check and an analysis of it. But adding in what would the differential be on different racial groups if we passed this is something that's relatively new. It has been used in different cities in this country and in other countries as well. But I think it's not been widely used, and we're still hoping that it's going to get implemented in Princeton. And this case that Caroline has brought to us is an example of what could have been brought out, the kind of research she did to bring out what that differential impact would be, is the kind of thing that people in their daily work of creating these programs and laws and so forth would be able to do on a regular basis to try to achieve greater racial equity.
Well, I think it would be tremendously useful and hopefully impactful. I mean, I am after most of my life, thinking I understood that civil rights took us at least a micro step forward in history. I just think that it hasn't, sadly. I mean, it has. I mean, we're looking at a piece right here that is tremendously important. But if we don't keep this alive, and if we don't keep doing those kinds of analyses, there's so many aspects of land and water and all kinds of assets that we have in this country that could quickly vanish.
Yeah.
And they're going to vanish by the people who are most vulnerable. And unfortunately, race is still a big part of who's vulnerable.
When you mentioned the micro steps of civil rights, I'm reminded in 2014, Not in Our Town brought a traveling exhibit about Freedom Summer when voter registration was going on in Mississippi, and we partnered with the public library and other places around town. It was really, they had all of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee documents, and they created this really great exhibit. And part of the programming which the public library did for us was to bring the great Bob Moses, who was the head of that, to Princeton. And somebody at that meeting brought up the issue of progress. And he said, America lurches forward and then falls back, and lurches forward and then falls back. And I certainly, after the Barack Obama administration and everything we've seen since then, his words come to my mind so frequently. For clarity, and honestly, I have to say for a little bit of hopefulness, because I'm looking for hope somewhere, somehow, and that maybe we will get out of this yet again. Okay, I'm going to thank you all. I'm going to close the breakout rooms now, and we'll all be back in the main session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Poor Caroline got cut off mid-sentence. Always a good sign of a good breakout room if people are still mid-conversation, despite the warnings on their screen that they're about to get whisked back into the common room. So we'll spend just a couple of minutes together sharing out from the groups anything that really resonated for you, something that someone else said or something that you figured out. I'm the kind of person who I definitely feel like I'm smarter in conversation than I am sitting by myself. So I'm curious about what wisdom came out of your small group. You can just unmute and speak up. There are not that many of us.
Let's see, may I raise my hand here?
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll go for it. I think there was a general feeling that this feels like something that's gone on over and over and over again. Yeah, I happen to be reading Wilmington Lies. I got that. I'm not sure if that shows up. Yeah, Wilmington Lies, a fabulous, hideous book about the 1898 coup that took away what was probably the most prosperous Black community and politically active. They actually had a fusion government and just swept away. But the story always starts with Black people. Well, they're not doing what should be done. We'll do it. And what will we do? We'll end up with the power and the money.
Right.
And it's an over and over again. I think the message has to be that it doesn't it spreads to everybody. That kind of doesn't profit anybody except people who profit. I think that was a general consensus. Martha and wait, my brain is going. Names just go.
KD was with us. KD,
Wee.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I said then, and I'll say now, this is all a huge learning curve for me, and it's fascinating, and I have much more reading to do to try and understand and speak intelligently about it. But very, very interesting. My just out of coincidence, Bob, my sister had a huge amount to do with the recent 1898 Wilmington. They've put up huge statues and commemorations and such, and my sister was directly involved. So anyway, all very connected, but I don't have anything super intelligent to add at this point, but I have been stimulated to learn more.
Our friend Kim shares in the chat that book will be talked about during the Princeton Public Library's Black Voices book group coming up later this week, in fact. So for those of you who have read the book or have a copy and have been meaning to read the book, that's this Thursday at 7:15. There's information on the Princeton Public Library's website. So I think, well, I'll be quiet. Who else has something to share from your group that resonated with you or that made
Yeah, I have a question. I was in the Windows group. So one of the questions was exactly because there's a lot of members that were in our group that don't live in that community specifically. So I think the question was, I'm in a nearby town, I'm in a nearby community. What can I do? Like I don't agree with what's going on and it's concerning. And my input was number one, like use your vote to persuade decisions like this. And number two, attend council meetings and make your voice heard. Educate yourself on this issue and continuously bring it up. My question to Caroline is, what do you suggest if someone lives in Bordentown, if someone lives in Hamilton, if someone lives in a nearby neighborhood, what can we do to support you and your community and essentially this fight?
Well, actually, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So actually, Eileen in our group, she asked that very question, and she herself came up with, I'm sorry, I forget the other woman's name, but uh, pretty much it was decided that they should call, they should still get in touch with the gubernatorial candidates and ask the question about their position on this. I also ask that they talk about this in their own communities because this is something that if you say you're an ally, then help us to do the work do the work and spread the word about how systemic racism works in real time.
Yep.
Right? And how this is, like Bob said, a recurring theme in Black lives, in Black towns, right? So,
Absolutely.
yes. So, did I answer your question?
You did, yes.
Thank you.
I think there are definitely other people on this in this Zoom room who are now at the ready to go walk the streets if we get to the point of needing to collect signatures.
Okay.
So, until that time, trying to keep your antenna up, raising awareness, and reaching out to candidates and saying, listen, nobody's talking about this except for the people in Trenton whose asset is once again being threatened. And one of the things that really resonated with me was I hadn't really thought about how much non-rateable, non-taxable property and land, that's sort of a fundamental aspect of Trenton's existence. Just had never really thought about it through that lens before. So I'm really grateful, and I know I speak for everybody that we're so grateful to Caroline for putting in all the time and energy and work to tease out these themes and threads and to follow the money and follow the pressure and look at the history and sort of put it all together for us. Bob, did you have one more thing you wanted to add, or is that a leftover hand in the corner there?
Leftover hand. I have three, and one of them got in the way out there. I'm fine. This was really, if we're passing out, congratulations, Carolyn. It was fabulous. It just really addressed the issues that have to be addressed and digging beneath the surface and not believing the things that are said.
Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time this evening. And I'm very glad that everybody who was here is here, and I hope that you'll take this wisdom and this perspective with you out into your communities and into the rest of your life. We want to encourage folks to ma make space in your life for these conversations so that the news travels, and continue to make the commitment, make it an ongoing commitment. We're looking forward to our next continuing conversation, which will take place on Monday, November 3rd. We'll be learning with Erin Michelle Williams on the topic of threats to racial justice. Like a lot of our conversations, there are some themes that just seem to be evergreen. We would like to live in a time in which these questions were less relevant, but sadly, we are not there. So please come back and bring a friend. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Buddy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Michelle, excellent.
Thank you.